Hi, I'm Cameron, and today we're going to talk about the importance of optimizing your content for mobile devices, and then I'm going to give you some practical ways that you can actually do that. Now, we've reached a point in time where the majority of people are on the internet on a mobile device. It's over 50% now. And if we just look at social media networks, that's way higher. It's well over 50%. Because of the way people use these things now and because of the quality of apps. So that means there's no point anymore in having mobile as an afterthought. Doing your work on the desktop and then thinking, yeah, I'll just run it on mobile. You have to have mobile front of mind and even have desktop as an afterthought. Now obviously the optimum is to optimize for both. Social media content, you can definitely do that. It takes more work. And if you're doing blogs, you can do it too. You could optimize for mobile and optimize the same article for desktop, but generally speaking most of you are not going to be doing that, so why not optimize for mobile first? The majority of people are going to be using that, so it just makes more sense really logically. Now there's two things you want to keep in mind. The first one is people are generally going to be using social media and looking at content on a mobile device when they're doing something else or they're on the move, which means their attention is distracted with other things. You're competing for their attention with lots of different things. So your content for that matter is going to have to be short, it's going to have to be compact, and it's going to really have to capture their attention and be easy to follow. And then the second thing is people using a mobile device are obviously looking at smaller screens. Now there are some big tablets, but generally speaking a mobile device is always going to be smaller than a desktop or a tablet, smart TV, whatever. Plus, it's going to be portrait rather than landscapes. So keep that in mind as well. So, bearing these things in mind, let's look at some of the things you can practically do to optimize for mobile devices. Optimize your content. So the first thing is spacing out your text. So this goes for social media post captions and blogs as well. I'm sure you're starting to see that there's lots of social media posts that have these very long captions, but they don't just write one big massive paragraph or like properly write it in a grammatical sentence structure. They break it up into little snippets so that you consume it. Otherwise people look at it and go, that looks intimidating, I'll never be able to follow that, I'm going to lose my place, I'm not having it. But if you have it broken up, they're a lot more likely to look at it. Plus, what you want to kind of try and tactically do is give them a little snippet, and at the end of each line, make them want to read on. So you have to think about how you're actually writing it in a way that goes, right, they finished that bit, but you've left them on a cliffhanger every single time, so they keep reading through it. And the same goes for blogs. This is why it's important to condense your content, get rid of any fluff that doesn't really add value. Like, forget about what you learned in school, writing nice paragraphs. Just make it condensed as possible, but still read well. Because people reading a blog on a mobile device, same problem as on social media. They're going to be scrolling, trying to like scan it and take in as much information as possible in as short a time as possible so they can do the other things they're doing. If you have big paragraphs, it's just going to take up their whole screen, intimidate them, and they'll probably have enough and bounce off. Whereas if you keep drip feeding it to them, they're going to consume all your content. So bear that in mind. So that's enough about text spacing. The second thing you want to keep in mind relating to text as well is the font and colors. So like I said, mobile devices are always going to be smaller, but what they also have generally is sharper screens, better colors, which means things look different on a mobile as opposed to a desktop. But where are you probably going to create your content? Blogs, social media posts. You're going to be doing it on your desktop and laptop more likely. But then what happens if you post that and you don't know what it looks like on mobile? Sometimes it can be off. So for example, I've done posts in the past where you've created them on Canva, on the computer, look really good, posted them, looked on your mobile and going, hang on, can't see the difference between the text color and the background color. They're too similar on the mobile device with the mobile's colors. I'm gonna have to go back in and change them. So always check that first. Obviously if you use your branding colors or colors that you use every single time, You check it once and then you know in the future it's always going to be fine. But if you're doing something you don't normally do, just make sure you check it on the mobile device before actually posting it. And then what I was saying about font, obviously it's a smaller screen, so when text is a lot smaller, sometimes certain fonts it's difficult to read, whereas you can read it fine on the computer. So bear that in mind as well. Now the third thing is actually about your content creative itself. Mobile devices, again, talking about the shape, it is portrait. So YouTube, obviously you're going to be making stuff landscape. Let's keep that out of the equation. Let's just talk about social media platforms right now. You want to be having your creative as square or portrait, right? Because if you have a landscape video and you post it on Facebook, for example, what's going to happen is it's going to compress it into the width of your portrait font. But that means the height of the video is now a lot smaller than it would have been if it was on portrait mode on the phone. So it really condenses your video and makes it very small to see. Whereas if you use square, obviously it's already aligned for the perfect dimensions. Portrait really looks good on mobile because it takes up the full screen, but square really is the sort of go-to for the universal one that's going to work everywhere. So that should be your go-to. Square. If you want to do a portrait as well, you can in the right places, depending on your resource. And then the final one that I want you to do is to put captions on your videos. So like I said earlier, the majority of people are going to be using a mobile device where they're doing something else or they're on the move, which means they're probably going to have the sound off so they don't distract whatever else they're doing. So what will happen is they'll scroll through, they might see your video, they might like your visual, like they might capture their attention, but if there's no words there, they're going to go, oh, there's nothing I can see here, I'm off. Whereas if you have captions, they can see what you're actually saying. And sometimes you see it where people will literally be watching a video, they'll watch the full video, and they've not put on the sound at all. So it's captured their attention, they like what they're seeing, and they've not thought, okay, now I'm going to put on the sound and continue watching this has already got my attention. They actually just proceed to watch the whole thing with the captions on. So obviously that's a resource intensive thing. I myself, I don't always do it, but what you should be doing is if you've got flagship content, really great content you've done, or ads, you want to be burning captions on those specific ones because they're your flagship ones. And then the other ones you can fill up your content with not doing it. But if there's important things, absolutely burn captions on. And to be able to do that, you can do it a couple of ways. You can use a video editing software and actually type them out yourself. You can obviously give it out to someone else to do. You can upload the transcript files. If you put it on YouTube, download the transcript file and you can put it onto your video editing software and just select where it goes. Or you can use a platform that will do it automatically. And that's what I tend to do these days. I use one called Quick, that's Q-U-I-C-C, but there's other ones as well that you can use. I just find with my accent being Scottish, that one seems to interpret my words the best. So there's tons you can use. Other ones give you more features for actually editing your videos as well. And there's free ones. This one is free, like a freemium model where you get, I think it's 5 minutes a month or something, video time editing. But there's ones that are completely free, but for me they didn't work with my voice that well. I had to do a lot of corrections, so I found this one works very well. And what you do is you put it up, let it scan your audio, it will transcribe everything, and then you just go through and correct the mistakes. So there is going to be a lot of mistakes. I think these are all created for Americans, so maybe they don't have as many mistakes, but all you do is easily just change the mistakes, and it's a lot quicker than actually doing it frame by frame on your own videos, because that's what I used to do, and trust me, it takes forever. But one other thing to point out on that note, connected to the last point, is you want to make sure your caption size is big enough for mobiles. So again, you'll be doing all this editing on the computer. Just make sure you're using this font size that's big enough so when they're seeing it on the mobile, people aren't straining their eyes. And think about people who don't have, who have visual impairments and things. Make sure it works for them as well. It's big enough for people whose eyesight is not perfect, kind of thing, okay? So that's all the tips. Make sure if you've enjoyed it, leave a comment, ask any questions, follow the channel, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.